Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into the source material on one of the most fascinating organizations in all of professional sports.
The Sierra Falls Horizons.
Exactly. An NHL club that is just defined by success. We're talking multiple deep playoff runs, 2 cup wins recently, but also by some truly profound, really unique adversity.
And that's the puzzle we're trying to piece together today, isn't it? Our mission is to really understand the DNA of this team. How did they go from being this, historically failed franchise to a model of innovation?
And not just innovation, but how do they keep winning when they have these massive structural problems that, frankly, should have broken them years ago?
Statistically, yes, they shouldn't be able to sustain this level of success.
It's incredible. And I think to understand it, we have to start with where they came from. The Horizons didn't just pop up out of nowhere.
No, they inherited the ghosts of the old Birmingham Blaze.
A team that folded in 2021. And the Blaze weren't just bad. They were, a textbook example of how not to run a franchise.
When you dig into the data, they were a cautionary tale, a complete market misjudgment combined with just devastating underinvestment.
19 years and only 1 winning season.
One. And they were just invisible in their own city. The sources say they struggled to get more than 4,000 season ticket holders.
Just think about that for a second. A major league team with a fan base the size of a minor league club. It's unheard of.
And what was happening in the stands was mirrored behind the scenes. The internal culture was apparently chaotic, toxic even.
The facilities were a joke. There are documented reports of mold.
Pervasive mold in the player-changing areas. That goes beyond just being cheap. That's a health hazard. It tells your employees, your athletes, that you fundamentally do not care about their well-being.
It's a baseline of total neglect. And that's the mess that tech entrepreneur Adrian Holt bought in 2020.
Right. He relocates the team to the Northwest, rebrands them as the Sierra Falls Horizons, and starts this massive cultural reset.
But that move, which was step 1, immediately created this bizarre, almost absurd structural problem that tested him right out of the gate.
It really is the central absurdity of the whole operation.
Tell everyone, the team is located where?
Geographically, they're in the American Northwest. Think the border region of Utah, Montana, Idaho.
But they compete in the NHL's Eastern Conference.
It makes absolutely no logistical sense.
None. In a league where every tiny advantage matters, why would the NHL let that happen? How does that even work?
It's a perfect storm of, bureaucracy and league politics. The NHL plans its schedules years and years ahead of time.
So inertia.
A lot of inertia. And realignment is politically messy. It needs almost unanimous approval, and you have to balance the divisions. But there was also some pretty active resistance.
The sources are pretty clear on this.
Yeah.
A few of the old guard Eastern owners were actively blocking the shift.
It seems they saw Holt's new, high-spending, welfare-first approach as a threat. Or maybe just an unwelcome critique of their more traditional budget-focused models.
So they were happy to let his experiment struggle. Maybe even fail.
It certainly looks that way. They essentially gave the new franchise a handicap from day one, and the consequence is staggering.
The Horizons are, by a huge margin, the most travel-punished team in hockey.
It's not even close. Constant jet lag, brutal time zone shifts, almost no recovery time. For any other successful team, minimizing travel is priority number 1. For the Horizons, it's just a weekly grind they can't avoid.
So this travel nightmare should have been a death sentence for them competitively. This is where the story gets so interesting.
This is the twist.
The NHL Players Association, the NHLPA, they had to sign off on this, right? They had to issue a travel waiver for the team to even operate under this schedule.
Absolutely. And that waiver, that single piece of paper, inadvertently changed everything.
Oh, so?
The necessity of getting that waiver forced Holt to treat player welfare not as a perk or a luxury, but as a mandatory, non-negotiable part of this operation.
It became the catalyst.
The catalyst for all the innovation that followed. The agreement with the PA mandated aggressive investment in player care. We're talking enhanced aircraft, with recovery amenities.
Strict, mandatory rest periods built right into their schedule.
And massive upgrades to their sports science facilities. They had to monitor sleep protocols, everything. They basically had to become the best in the league at recovery just to function.
So the one thing that should have destroyed the team, the travel, is the very thing that forced them to become leaders in load management.
That's the paradox. Their world-class support system isn't just Holt being a good guy. It's a countermeasure to a handicap. Necessity drove them to what we now call the Holt model.
Let's get into that model because it's so unique financially.
Yeah.
Holt comes from the tech world, Helios Systems,
Yeah.
and he brings this tech mindset. He talks about transparency, system resilience.
And when you apply those ideas from, say, software development to a hockey team, it changes the game.
What does that actually look like?
Well, transparency means data fatigue metrics, performance analytics is shared widely. Players know where they stand. System resilience means the team is built to absorb shocks. It's that next man up idea, but on a systemic level.
So if a star player like Michael Callahan gets injured,
The whole system doesn't just collapse. There's depth, there's rotation, the machine keeps running.
and his financial strategy is what makes all this possible. So how does he fund all of this? The top-tier facilities, the welfare programs, without violating the NHL's salary cap,
He uses something the sources call legal extra cap spending.
meaning.
It's spending that's allowed under the CBA because it's not direct player salary. It covers things like facilities, athlete housing, enhanced insurance, and all the AI and wearable sensors they use for fatigue monitoring.
Okay, that makes sense for big one-time purchases. But what about the ongoing costs, the staff, the wellness projects? That needs a constant flow of cash.
And that's where it gets really interesting. That's where Holt Ventures comes in.
His personal investment fund.
Exactly. It's a separate, discrete, high-risk portfolio. He uses it to generate personal profit, and then a significant portion of those profits are quietly funneled back into the Horizon's long-term initiatives.
Like the insurance pools and experimental recovery project.
Precisely. It's how he maintains that world-class support system without ever touching the salary cap.
Okay, but I have to push back on that. It's brilliant, yes, but isn't relying on one guy's speculative investments a huge flaw? What if the market tanks and Holt Ventures dries up?
That's a fair and very critical question, and Holt seems to have anticipated it. The money doesn't go straight into the team's operating budget.
Where does it go?
It goes into separate long-term endowments and insurance pools, kind of like a university. He's legally guaranteed that no matter what, a certain amount of capital is there to sustain the core programs for at least 5 years.
So he built a firewall.
A firewall is a perfect way to put it. He separates his high-risk ventures from the basic needs of the club. He basically turns his speculative wealth into a reliable utility for the organization.
And that underwrites the centerpiece of their entire philosophy, the Horizons Futures program.
Right. It's a collaboration with Sierra Western University, and the mission is crystal clear. Make sure every single player develops real, transferable skills for a life after hockey.
This sounds great on paper, but why would a star player in his prime, with agents telling him to focus on his next contract, spend time on, I don't know, vocational training?
Because it's baked into the culture. And the financial incentives are tied to longevity and team success, not just raw minutes on the ice. When your captain, Michael Callahan, is publicly mentoring a rookie in the entrepreneurship track, it sends a message.
It sets the standard.
It sets the standard. The program offers everything from academic degrees with tuition help to practical skills like financial literacy.
And the most interesting detail is how they structure the support. It's tiered.
Yes. They don't just spread the money evenly. They prioritize full funding for the AHL and development players. Tier 1.
The guys whose careers are the most uncertain.
Exactly. The ones most at risk from a bad injury. It's about taking away that fear of financial ruin, which ironically allows them to play better and more freely on the ice because they're not constantly worried about the future.
That model makes Sierra Falls an incredibly attractive place to play. But doesn't that create its own problems? A talent bottleneck, maybe?
Yeah.
Or accusations of an unfair advantage?
And that's where the culture of accountability comes in. It's managed by a very strict zero-tolerance policy.
Which is?
Integrity over talent. Always. If a player violates professional conduct, we're talking hazing, bullying, anything that damages that self-policing culture, they are gone, traded or released.
And a superstar.
Without a doubt. Holt famously quotes that David Morrison line internally. The standard you walk past is a standard you accept. They would rather lose a top player than let the cultural rot set in.
Let's shift to what this looks like on the ice. The players themselves, on their own podcast, Beyond Overtime, they called the system meritocracy with a side of chaos.
I love that quote.
It sounds like a total contradiction, I think. How can a system be both merit-based and chaotic?
Well, they're talking about their tactical system, the dynamic pairing and adaptive deployment strategy. The chaos is the lack of rigid traditional forward lines. The meritocracy is that data, not just seniority, determines who plays and when.
And it's all built around preventing fatigue before it even becomes a problem.
That's the key. They track cumulative stress acceleration, sleep debt, everything. Their head trainer said most players will hit, say, 85% fatigue and swear they're fine, only to completely fall off a cliff a week later.
So the Horizons don't wait for that.
They don't wait. They intervene early. They'll pull a player's load back to maybe 70% for a game or two, let them actually recover, and break that cycle of just grinding players into dust.
And the adaptive deployment, the rotation, is how they do that without bruising egos.
That's the genius of it. Their stars, like Callahan, still play huge minutes, but maybe it's 21 to 23 minutes a night instead of 25 plus. That small reduction over a full season is an enormous drop in wear and tear.
In most places, if your minutes go down, it's a demotion. Agents get angry.
But here, rotation is normal. It's not a punishment. It's just how they do business to win longer. The leadership core publicly buys in. They mentor guys on the lower lines.
And the bonuses are tied to team success and longevity metrics.
Right, so the agents are on board too. Winning sustainably is just more profitable for everyone than a quick burnout.
And when you look at their low injury rates and consistent success, you can't argue with the results. They win smarter.
To kind of wrap this all up, the Horizons really prove that that ethical abundance and competitive fire can go hand in hand. Their awful starting point with the Blaze forced them to build a culture of integrity.
And their biggest weakness, that brutal travel schedule,
is what forced their biggest strength: the aggressive load management and the world-class welfare. They've built a sustainable model that develops people, not just hockey players.
They made player welfare the absolute backbone of their entire performance strategy. It's amazing that their greatest disadvantage created their greatest advantage.
But it does leave you with a critical question to think about. The Horizons have proven, without a doubt, the competitive value of this model. But rival owners still accuse Holt of creating an unfair advantage with his money.
So the question is,
Given that this model works, will the NHL ever overcome its own politics and tradition to mandate similar ethical standards across the league? Or is the Horizons' advantage just destined to remain a private, untouchable luxury?